Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. Today, we are going to discuss GDPR and DORA and how to integrate cybersecurity, resilience, and data protection. I'm really happy that I have two great speakers today. With us today is Dr. Noni Hlazo, privacy expert and lawyer from BD Emerson. Hello, Noni.
Hi, Marko.
And we also have my colleague Nojus Antanas, who is a general counsel and founder at CyberUpgrade. Hello, Nojus.
Hello, everyone.
So as I mentioned, today we're going to discuss DORA and GDPR. We all know that financial institutions need to comply with both of these regulatory frameworks, and they do share the same goal. The requirements differ a little bit in scope and application. So just to point out, these are the two different frameworks that can be merged, but some resource optimization can be done. And this is what we are going to look at today, among other things. So to start this discussion, first question would be for you, Noni. Could you let us know what are the main objectives of DORA and GDPR, and how could they complement each other?
Okay, thank you, Marko. That's a great question to start with. While DORA and GDPR are different, they are deeply complementary in building a secure and trustworthy digital environment, especially for financial institutions. So while the GDPR is focused on protecting individuals' personal data, DORA, on the other hand, is specifically designed for the financial sector and its critical ICT service providers. So we could say its primary goal is to ensure that financial entities can withstand and recover from ICT-related disruptions. Now, in terms of how the two complement each other, the GDPR ensures that data is handled lawfully, firstly, and securely, while DORA ensures that systems and services processing that data are resilient. Regulations both require strong incident response and breach notification processes, and they also align on third-party risk management. So both focus on third-party risk management, with GDPR focusing on data processors and DORA emphasizing ICT service providers.
Okay. We're going to mention the items you spoke about a little bit later. But for now, Nojus, one question for you. It was interesting for me while doing the research for this webinar to notice that there are some differences between DORA and GDPR when it comes to exact guidelines and principles. Could you let us know a bit more about that, please?
Yes, of course, Marko. So first of all, I like to say that DORA is more like some home appliance manual, which provides more detailed approach to what needs to be done, to what bare minimums for your information security management system should be implemented, while GDPR is more principle-based. Don't get me wrong, both of these regulations have like core principles, but for example, GDPR does not provide you the exact information, for example, on some specific data retention periods. National regulators may give those retention periods for the mentioned data, but GDPR itself does not mention it. So as I mentioned, DORA is more like a manual for some appliance, and GDPR is more like a philosophy. It's just some core values that you need to follow in order to be GDPR compliant. So I cannot say that GDPR gives more flexibility. It's still very strict regulation, but it gives more leeway on implementing this regulation compliance. Also, what I like to give, an analogy how the GDPR would look if it would be real estate regulation, because as we know, city municipalities usually pass some real estate guidelines on how specific buildings need to look to be built in some specific districts. They give guidelines on height and some or maybe colors. And if GDPR would be real estate regulation, it would say that, well, basically, this building can be a skyscraper, or it can be some old school Art Deco building, but you need to follow these core principles in order to be GDPR compliant. And if regulator decides that you are not following these principles, you will get fined. So long story short, in my opinion, and after reading the whole regulatory text, you can see that DORA is more in detail, while GDPR is more broader principle-based regulation, where you need to make more decisions by yourself.
Okay, but when looking at it from that analogy, real estate analogy, I'm sure it would be the best option would be to combine both, right? And to get a great city with a different skyline and different buildings. So this is basically in line with what we are discussing today. And to follow up on that note, Noni, why is it important to have harmony and coordination between these two frameworks?
Well, simply put, right, both frameworks are interdependent. So the GDPR ensures data is lawfully and securely processed, as I mentioned earlier, while DORA ensures that systems processing that data remain operational and resilient. So if these frameworks aren't aligned, organizations, financial organizations, risk creating what we term compliance silos, or where they end up missing critical overlaps, like in critical areas like breach response, vendor risk management, and cybersecurity measures. So that harmonization is very important if we want to save money and save resources and prevent duplicated efforts.
And then we can discuss a bit that harmonization in a bit more details. Nojus, a question for you would be like the risk assessment, right? When we look at it at some requirements that are similar in DORA and GDPR, a risk assessment is one of them. So under DORA, companies need to conduct an assessment of their ICT risks. And how can they kind of connect that with GDPR efforts, not to duplicate what's needed there? Could you let us know, please?
Great question, Marko. So first of all, when you conduct risk assessment, you conduct risk, according to DORA, you conduct risk on various assets. So it might be some hardware, some cloud server, or some data. So when you inventorize your assets, you will definitely see assets that are used to process personal data, or some specific personal data will also be an asset. So this risk assessment process can help you to identify the main risks for personal data protection, and it can help you to map those risks, and if needed, conduct data protection impact assessment, or DPIA, and assess not only those risks, but mitigation measures that need to be applied or are applied to those specific risks that are posed for personal data. Also, there is a requirement, according to GDPR, to implement appropriate technical and organizational security measures to mitigate those risks. So, and as I mentioned, DORA provides more in detail requirements for those controls, both organizational and technical. So the proper implementation of DORA regulation can help you to implement this GDPR requirement. And as I mentioned, risk assessment will definitely help you to map risks that are posed to privacy or protection of personal data.
Mm-hmm. Noni, would you say this is the harmonization you were discussing? Anything perhaps to add here?
Yes, I agree with Nojus. I would just add that using a centralized register and centralizing your governance structures, for example, involving the data protection officer and the information security team when making decisions.
I think we lost Noni for a second here. Let's see. It's always some technical glitch. But
Sorry
it's
about
good.
that.
It's good. We see you, Noni. It's all good. So
Okay.
you can please continue.
Oh, yeah, so I was just emphasizing the need to involve both the data protection officer and the information security team, and using a centralized register. Or I'm a very big fan of, I advocate for automated tools and compliance platforms that can further streamline your efforts. If there's a way to automate it to prevent mistakes, then I would definitely suggest that.
Okay, I think that's a great conclusion of this topic. Automate whatever you can. Yeah, so that's good. Okay, let's dive into the incident response processes. So incident response processes in DORA and in GDPR are a bit different. So Nojus, can you tell us a bit about that more?
Of course. So first of all, when we talk about incidents under GDPR, these are incidents that involve personal data. And according to DORA, not necessarily. Incidents under DORA can just disrupt the availability of your service, and basically it's much broader than GDPR. And the notification process is also different, and you need to bear in mind that for data protection supervisory authorities, you need to notify breach in 72 hours after the occurrence of the breach. And according to DORA, it's different approach. So first of all, you need to notify not personal data protection supervisory authorities, but central bank, depending on the jurisdiction where you are incorporated and acting. And there are 3 timelines. So first of all is initial notification, which should be done in 4 hours after the occurrence of the breach. Then intermediate notification, which should be done in 72 hours after the occurrence. And final notification, not notification, but report form in 30 days after the occurrence of the breach. So when, for example, if organization encounters incident, which is also a personal data breach, you need to keep in mind that for notifying personal data breach, you have 72 hours. So if you, during your initial assessment, you see that personal data security was breached, you need to inform that regulator in 72 hours. And in 4 hours, as soon as possible, you need to notify your central bank that that some specific incident have happened. And before 72 hours, you need to provide more details. So the investigation of those of that incident, according to DORA and GDPR, can go hand in hand, and basically it's not contradicting each other, in my opinion.
Let's look at it perhaps on an example. So Noni, question for you. So you have let's say we have a hypothetical situation where we have a European bank and their CRM platform suffers a breach. So what's the process following GDPR and DORA when it comes to incident response?
Okay, we will just assume that personally identified AI has been affected. Yes, so the first step in this scenario, the bank would need to trigger both GDPR and DORA incident response protocols. And timing is very crucial. The importance of timing cannot be overemphasized, as Nojus was explaining. Under GDPR, as Nojus said, we have 72 hours, right? This is to notify the supervisory authority and to inform affected individuals without undue delay if there's a high risk to their rights and freedoms. At the same time, under DORA, the bank must also log and classify the ICT incident. They must report it to their financial regulator, following well, I wouldn't say strict, but following the specific incident reporting timelines, and conduct a post-incident review to assess the causes and the risk that's been incurred. So now, because this incident involves, I'll just take this a step further, because this incident involves a third-party CRM provider, both regulations would then require the bank to assess the CIM as a vendor, their role, their obligations, their contractual obligations, and whether due diligence and contracts were sufficiently observed. Yeah.
And seems like a lot of work imposed by these frameworks, but it's all for the good cause of preventing future incidents like this. And you did open an interesting topic, Noni, where you discussed a little bit about third parties. So we know that in DORA and in GDPR, we have articles talking about third parties. In GDPR, it's the controller-processor relationship. In DORA, we have ICT third-party risk management. So, Nojus, question for you here. What are some of the key elements that financial institutions can include in their ICT vendor contracts to ensure compliance with DORA and GDPR in line with this, what Noni also mentioned?
Yes, so first of all, as you mentioned, there is a requirement in GDPR to have data processing agreement in place if you are contracting a data processor. And there are some specific requirements according to GDPR to have in those contracts. So basically, you have to have this contract, and well, I could say every time you will have the main agreement discussing the commercials about the use of some specific service. So in the main agreement, you should implement some DORA specific clauses. So I could say that third-party risk management under DORA is a separate topic that you can make probably 2 free webinars out of it. So just for starters, you need to ensure that there are obligations for data processor to have a good information security standing and standards in its organization. Also, there must be audit rights clauses that gives you a right to audit that third party. Also, some specific termination clauses and requirements for that third party to assess the risk of its third parties, of its subcontractors, and also clauses regarding exit strategies if it's critical or important to third party.
Just to mention, we did the webinar for DORA ICT third-party risk management. So that's something also our viewers can watch on our website because it is, as you said, a huge topic on its own.
Yes.
Noni, anything to add here from your end? Some like best practices for drafting, reviewing vendor contracts?
Yes, sure. But these are very general, just key best practices, I would say. Yeah. So whether you're looking at GDPR or DORA or both, the goal here is to build contracts that are clear, that are enforceable and risk aware, right? So yeah, firstly, I would start with a risk assessment. This is to say you understand what data or systems the vendor will touch or the vendor will have access to. If they handle personal data, then the GDPR applies. If they are critical to operations, then DORA applies. So that will kind of give you a guideline on which regulation applies and how. Yes, so secondly, I would say include a strong data processing agreement, as Nojus mentioned. I won't repeat much on that. And then the next step would be to clearly define your SLAs and your KPIs as any contract would require. I would also add, yes, the subcontracting restrictions in place. You should also make sure you enforce your right to audit, as Nojus emphasized. Yeah, so this is just basically adding on and emphasizing what Nojus said. So the contract, the basis of it is the contracts should spell out how the vendor will notify you and support you in case of breach or ICT incidents, and you need to make sure that they are aligned with the regulatory deadlines. So in order to plan for a smooth, secure offboarding as well, you need that DPA to be quite comprehensive and ensure that data is returned or deleted afterwards, and to support in any transition or yes, when there are any transitions. Yes. So yeah, those would be my best practices. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. Definitely, as we said, huge topic on its own, but these were just some like general guidelines or best practices that our viewers can take out. But Noni, I'd like to also ask you one other question that I came across while doing the research for this. The fact is that DORA and GDPR both aim to protect individuals, right? GDPR by safeguarding personal data, and DORA by ensuring the resilience of the financial institutions that are then used by individuals. So this is a little bit opinionated question, but what do you think? Which of these regulations has a more direct impact on customers, and why?
Okay, this is an interesting one because I would say GDPR directly affects individuals, while DORA indirectly affects individuals. So from my perspective, GDPR has the more visible impact on its customers because it's centered on individuals' rights, the data subject rights, or DSR. It gives people control over how their personal data is collected, how it's used, how it's stored, and how it's shared with their right to data portability. DORA, on the other hand, protects individuals more indirectly, as I emphasized that. This is done by safeguarding the financial system's operation resilience. So if a bank, for example, suffers an ICT failure, DORA ensures that the system continues. There's continuity, there's system integrity, and a rapid recovery, right? This protects the trust and financial stability of the banking sector, which ultimately benefits the customer. So while DORA has a very visible and direct impact on the rights of the individual, GDPR has a very visible impact on the customers. I would say DORA has the more indirect impact, but both very, very essential.
Yes, that's what we kind of, I'm sure everybody agrees on that. Yeah. Okay, Noya's question for you: when it comes to training awareness, both of these regulations say that employees need to be trained, made aware of the risks. So how to what do you think, how to create programs with this dual focus in mind, training programs, and is it possible to do that?
Definitely it's possible, and I would suggest just basically incorporating both these regulations into your training programs, because as we discussed, those regulations complement each other. DORA's more technical information security focused trainings will help to raise awareness on how to keep your information secured, both from organizational and technical side. Will help. This information will help you to be aware of some information security threats that can occur, and as you all have to comply both with DORA and GDPR, you just need to emphasize those regulations in your organization, and basically creating a well-structured, comprehensive, both regulation-focused program will just help you to create very resilient culture in your organization. And yes, I cannot emphasize the importance of the trainings, and what we like to say in our organization is when someone comes and asks who is responsible for information security in your organization, you should answer everyone. So long story short, when you create this training program, make it very in-depth, focus on both GDPR and DORA requirements, make it as detailed as possible, and of course, educate your every employee regarding those matters.
Yeah, I can also confirm that from experience talking with a lot of customers that, you know, this part of security culture that I believe you're referring to is very, very important. And I really like this phrase that you said, everybody is responsible for cybersecurity. Must also point out that in my previous company, we had a colleague from customer success. And then when somebody would ask her who is responsible for customer success, she would also reply, everybody. So yeah, I think it's being used widely, but it does really make sense. Okay, now to kind of continue the discussion or, you know, bring it towards some sort of a closure, audits are something that happens when everything, all the requirements are fulfilled, hopefully requirements, controls, tasks. And how can companies manage audits effectively without this compliance overload when it comes to DORA and GDPR? What would be some of your advice here?
As Noni mentioned prior, automatization. In my opinion, automatization is a key. And the problem with audits is that auditors ask for a lot of evidences, a lot of information. And when it is just all over the place in the organization, it's problematic. You have to know who is the owner of some specific thing and ask that person to provide that evidence. And automatization, some compliance tools help you to structure those audit evidences in one centralized repository. And also what helps to prepare for audits accordingly is to comply. You need to comply with the requirements of, for example, DORA regulation to do some specific actions periodically, which is required. For example, periodic trainings or, for example, disaster recovery plan tests. So when you conduct those tests or other continuous actions continuously and use centralized the evidence collection in systems with automatization, it helps you to make that audit seamless and not a headache, just a formality that you have to provide access to some specific audit tool to the auditor, and the auditor can see what you have in that place.
So auditing will be something you look forward to compared to perhaps the situation now that companies have when they're not using automation, but they are concerned what will the audit showcase.
Yes.
Okay, now all of these regulations are, of course, in general good. They're helping companies increase their resilience, security, us as individuals to help us safeguard our data that concerns our privacy. But I have an interesting question, hopefully, for you, Noni, here. There is more and more these regulatory frameworks emerging. Has compliance become more like a checkbox exercise than a meaningful safeguard? Or perhaps it became a burden for some companies? What is your experience here when it comes to your customers?
Okay, interesting. So yeah, there is some sort of like murmuring and complaints that compliance now is more of a burden, especially when frameworks overlap, like the GDPR and DORA, right? But I think this is quite a short-sighted view. It's like every other day that you open LinkedIn, there is someone posting about a new amendment, a new regulation. There's like more and more and more coming up. And yes, it requires effort, it requires coordination, it requires investment. But I think in a competitive market, compliance can actually be an advantage. So customers and partners now prefer actually to work with organizations that are secure, that are transparent and trustworthy. So being able to demonstrate to your partners and to your customers that you have strong privacy practices or strong operational resilience builds trust, and trust sells. So no, I don't think that compliance is a burden. I think that it is an opportunity for companies to build a competitive advantage and to take advantage of the requirement for trust. So yeah, I disagree.
Okay, good. And I think that's a really strong statement, using compliance as a competitive advantage. And I think we probably can all agree that compliance is the first step, right? We mentioned the security culture previously. Then you build on top of that compliance, all the requirements that you have to do. But there are so much more things that you can do besides that. One other question I would have for you, Nojus, here is, you know, it's not just the legal challenge, as we saw throughout this discussion, to kind of ensure compliance with GDPR and DORA. It also demands cybersecurity measures or technical measures. So we need, of course, legal experts on one side of the things, but we also need some technical controls that cybersecurity teams need to implement. And how can organizations bridge that gap between legal and technical teams to build this smooth compliance process?
Yes, so first of all, I would say you need clear communication in your organization. Teams should cooperate and supplement each other. So basically, for tech people, European regulations may be a hard thing to read, but lawyers do that every day. So the lawyer needs to communicate clearly what is required by a regulator to the tech team. Also, it's not only tech team, but also HR, communication department, and also management bodies need to be aware about that. So first, as mentioned, first rule would be clear communication. And second, again, automatization, because automatization tools that provide proactive guidance on information security measures can help, again, to centralize whole process into one hub and just streamline those tasks, what needs to be done to the whole organization, to the staff, in order to create that security culture, as we mentioned earlier.
Okay. We're a bit out of time now, but I think, you know, it's impossible to cover everything regarding these two frameworks in 30 minutes. But I think we managed to kind of touch the tip of the iceberg here and showcase that even though these are like different frameworks, they do share a common goal. Goal is, as you said, safeguarding data, financial stability, trust in the digital economy. And, you know, by aligning them, companies can save money and resources. And as we heard from Noni, it can be a strong competitive advantage for companies. Thank you so much for participating in this webinar. Thank you, Noni, for sharing your legal expertise. We know that BD Emerson does a lot of cybersecurity consulting, a lot of auditing. So it was really a pleasure to hear from you based on the experience with customers. And Nojus, our company, CyberUpgrade, provides cybersecurity automation solutions, something that really is necessary, as we saw in today's landscape. Thank you once again for joining. And just to kind of remind everybody, stay resilient, stay safe, and stay compliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.